Hi, my name's Lorrie Popow, and I just came back from a special event called Pysanky at the Gardens. Because these were live events, the audio and video aren't studio quality, but I know you will still enjoy them very much.
My name is Susan Blubaugh, and I also have a Facebook page called Pysanky Spirit. I'm going to be demonstrating some of my techniques for using alcohol inks on eggs. Now, I found several years ago a blog called Funked Up Art Blog, which talked about making alcohol ink Easter eggs. So this is how I started with the alcohol inks. I saw this, I thought it would look very interesting, and it's very similar to videos that, like I said, that Lorrie did on YouTube. Simply, well, I'll explain the procedure in a little bit, but simply daubing the inks onto the eggs, and you can see that you can get some very beautiful effects that way and not worrying about using Kiskas or melting wax off or anything else. Well, after I started doing that, I started thinking, well, I wonder if I can use this along with wax. So I started with just a plain white background and seeing what I could do with that, waxing in the white areas first of all, and then daubing the alcohol inks on the background. And I thought, and then I melted the wax off. A couple of them were failures, of course, but after a while I kind of got the hang of it and decided, okay, I'm going to try using dyes and alcohol ink at the same time. So these are examples of using the dyes with the alcohol inks. And then later on I graduated to using just simply alcohol inks on the eggs. And the eggs over here, I waxed and inked and waxed and inked and got that result, and it kind of works. But like I said, there's a learning curve here. It's a little bit frustrating, and I feel that I've only scratched the surface of using alcohol inks. After I worked with the eggs, then I started doing this on ceramic tiles. This is a more representational one, and this is a more abstract one, and my tiles are sort of inspired by the scenery in the Cascades on the Pacific Northwest. But anyway, getting back to the eggs. Now, I showed you the results, and I'll talk to you about how I got those results, some of the materials. Of course, you want to get a set of alcohol inks. These are available at Hobby Lobby, Michael's, Joann Fabric, or online, and the least expensive place that I've found online is Barbara Joggles. And rather than selling them in packs of 3, on that website you can get the individual colors. And of course you'll need the blending solution, and it does exactly as it says. It's alcohol and glycerin combination that helps blend the ink on the eggs. And another thing that I've used to get a little bit of a glitter iridescence on the egg is using mica powder, which I found online. And it's a very fine mica powder. It doesn't have any color in it, but it picks up the colors in the eggs beautifully. All right, and also at any of the places that I talked to you before, you can find the alcohol ink daubers. This is what you can get. All of these are Ranger inks, and I found that so far I think those are the best to use on eggs. Jacquard manufactures alcohol inks called Pinata inks. They're thicker. I use those on the tiles. They seem to flow best on the tiles when I use them. But also there's another brand of ink called Spectrum Noir. I haven't used those yet, but a lot of people like using those in art. Alcohol ink is really picking up in popularity in other art mediums, tiles, on Yupo paper, using them like watercolors. Now, these are a little bit pricey. So if you want to economize, Lorrie has shown you how to make different types of daubers. I just get a wine cork, get a line of Velcro, and then cut felt to fit on the Velcro. And I cut felt to fit on these two. You can buy these little felt rectangles in packs at all of the other places that I told you about, but they're expensive. You can buy one of these for $1 or less at Joann Fabric, and I have a paper cutter at home, so it makes things easy. Helps be a retired teacher. You have all these doodads that are left over from that. All right, I use also 91% isopropyl alcohol, and that works in cleaning the alcohol off the eggs or off your hands, or if you get magic marker or Sharpie marks on furniture or clothing, this works great in getting it out. And I usually get these Walgreens, Walmart, just about any place it's available. I'll use mineral to clean the eggs. Of course, I use mineral spirits. I've got my oil and my soap and my watering candle ready to melt the wax off the egg and clean the egg when I'm finished. All right, now down to the technique for using multiple inks on the egg. I think Valerie began to show you this process last year. But what I do, I begin by, of course, waxing in the white lines, and I etch these white lines. I feel that works best with the alcohol inks. And if I happen to get the alcohol ink on the white lines, then I can use an X-Acto knife to scrape it off since it's elevated from the rest of the eggshell. So this has been etched. But once I etch it, I dye the egg. This is a finished product, but I'm first going to ink in the gold ink, and this is using metallic ink. And I dye the background yellow or gold in case I don't get an even coverage on the egg, then it's not going to be as obvious. And you can do that with the other colors if you want to also. All right, so I'm going to start by daubing in the gold, and hopefully I'll have enough gold ink left. I found that I grabbed my copper colored ink instead of the gold ink.
There's gold in the set over here.
Oh, okay. So begin by using that. It looks like I might have gotten another color in there. And I want the outer edge of the little rhombus or rhombi gold. So it's just simply a matter of daubing it, doing a quick daub on like that for the first time, then repeating it until I get the coverage that I want. And I want a solid coverage on this. And I like to add a little bit of yellow in that. That brightens up the gold just a little bit. I keep going until I'm finished with the areas that I want to have gold. Let it dry. Alcohol ink dries very quickly since the alcohol dissolves very quickly. Then the next thing I'll do, of course, is wax in those gold areas. And I see that I've also covered the interior triangles here. But anyway, you can see that on this egg. All right, so I'm done with the gold areas, and I'm ready to do the sort of rosy metallic areas. So I will take my same little pad here with the gold ink on it and add a little bit of plum or raspberry of the Ranger ink colors and start dabbing that. And if you like that goldy metallic, colors, it works very well. The gold works well with the reds, the pinks, and even the greens. Doesn't work so well with the blues, and I'm sort of still experimenting on using the silver metallic with the blues. Silver, for whatever reason, doesn't seem to stick very well on the egg. And I find that, I might have mentioned this before, but dyeing the egg first, it could be my imagination, but I think it helps the ink to stick on the egg. So I'll just keep dabbing that until I get the shade of the color I want. Mixing the pinks and the gold together. And I'll eventually repeat that on the other side. And then cover that area with wax. Now I'm ready for the background, but I think before I do the background I want to get some of that ink off the egg. So what I will do is bring my bowl over here. Spray the alcohol inks with the isopropyl alcohol, which dissolves the ink away.
Wow. Pat, right here. You get it from right here. Tissue?
Yep, just a tissue, paper towel, whatever you use to dry an egg off. I really should have grabbed a paper towel too to dry my glove off, but I'll just do the best that I can here. Thank you. Now I'm ready to do the background, so I will pick up another ink dauber or whatever those things are called. And since you can see on a close-up that I have a mottled or sort of marbleized pink and purple areas on that egg, on that particular egg, I can add any colors I want to, really. So put a little bit of purple, put a little bit of pink in there, and just simply start daubing the colors onto the egg until I get the kind of look or values or whatever that I want. And you can see, if you've never used alcohol inks before, how they create a bit of marbling in there. Alcohol inks, like I said, can be frustrating to work with because they don't act like watercolors. They don't mix the same way. I have combined some reds and some blues together, and rather than getting purples, I get a teal. You know, go figure. But it's how the chemicals and the dyes react with the alcohol. So all your color theory kind of goes out the window sometimes with the alcohol ink. Get something a little bit strange or different. All right, so you can get the idea. You just keep going. Since that one's a little bit darker, I would guess that I added a little bit of teal in there. Or it's called stream. So just keep going, keep daubing, adding what you want, but I think you get the idea. All right, now the egg has been completely covered. So now I'm going to move this over for a minute. Bring over my candle and begin waxing or taking the wax off the egg. Bring over my oil, and eventually I'll use that soap. And my handy dandy Arkansas lighter. All right, with the alcohol ink, you want to generously oil the egg. And I want to say that you want to aim toward floating the oil off the egg and the wax off rather than trying to rub it off. You want to be very carefully and simply pat the wax off the egg. And don't worry that you have a little bit of residual left afterwards. Now these eggs were waxed and inked several weeks ago. So this is an experiment in itself to see how the alcohol inks and the wax react after sitting there a couple of weeks. Yeah, it looks like it's doing okay, but you want to just let the tissue pull the wax off the egg rather than rubbing it. Avoid, if possible, rubbing any of the wax off the egg because that tends to disturb the alcohol ink. If you feel the egg getting dry, you want to oil it again, because that use the oil very liberally. Okay, while we're waiting, does anybody have any questions right offhand?
Is this olive oil?
Nope, just the cheapest canola oil that I could find. I saved the olive oil for my salads and cooking.
If we don't use candles, can we use the other electric heat sources?
Marilyn has been using an air gun on it, heat gun.
Uh-huh.
Heat, yeah, and that's worked fine with alcohol inks.
Use the same varnish you would for...
Yes, I use MSA Golden varnish, either the matte or gloss or a combination depending upon the effects that you want.
And when are you putting the mica?
Oh, I incorporate that in the varnish. When I'm, and I didn't bring my varnish here, but anyway, I have a can of it sitting on the cabinet with a popsicle stick in it, and I drip the couple of drops with the popsicle stick, and then rub the varnish on with my fingers, and then I stick my finger in the mica powder and incorporate it into the varnish for the first varnishing, and then over that add several more coats of varnish, and that seems to help the mica create an iridescence on the egg.
Do you thin your MSA gold?
A little bit, I would say maybe 4-to-1. The varnish 4. I don't thin it as much as they recommend on the bottle. I think on the bottle it says use half and half varnish, half of the solvent or the, well, they sell a brand that they say has to be used with their egg, but I've found that mineral spirits work just as well too and don't cause any harm.
Did you draw the design on pencil and is that coming off okay?
Mm-hmm.
When you said in the beginning that when you pointed out different eggs and said that you experimented with something and what were the problems? What would?
Oh, well, many, anything you can think of. When I first began doing this, I didn't etch, and I found that I was rubbing off the ink. For whatever reason, I think that etching sort of works best with it. The wax picks up off the lines a little bit easier. All right, I've gotten most of the wax off the egg, so we'll get that out of the way. And I'll just drop that in there for the time being, and I'll...
And once.
Is that water?
That's mineral spirits. Okay, so I use the odorless mineral spirits, drop that in there and just roll it around for a minute or so just to let the mineral spirits soften the remainder of the wax. Okay, if you can hand me my bowl of water real quick. Avoid getting water in the mineral spirits in case it causes some of the dye to run.
You've gotten some on your painting, I don't know if that's an issue.
No, I've got those covered with
Seal it.
a sealant, yeah, so they're good. All right, after it's been in there for a minute or so, find the softest toothbrush that you can find and very, very, very gently brush the remaining wax, soot, whatever residue is on that egg. And if some of the wax and ink bits stick and are stubborn, don't brush harder or rub it. Simply take your fingernail or an X-Acto knife and very gently scrape.
Is some of the color coming off?
Yeah, some of it will
And that's
come
to be
off.
expected.
Yeah, because some of the color, let's say the purple got on this part of it.
Okay.
So that's where most of the extra color is coming from. But yeah, occasionally it will come from the background, but something that's okay because it adds a little bit more of an interesting texture.
How was your whole plant?
Wax.
What'd you ask, Carolyn?
How was-
How the whole was plugged?
I just use wax to plug the holes. Then I'll go back and take a Sharpie and purple Sharpie and cover that white area. Take one of the tissues.
Again, patting rather than rubbing.
Mm-hmm. Inspect it carefully. And so it's ready to be varnished, and you can see how you get it's almost an opalescent value in that. And I'll, like I said, dip my popsicle stick in the varnish, drip a few drops on, open up my mica powder if I want to use it. And like I said, it's a very fine powder, and incorporate that in the varnish. That is if I want to use it. This one I didn't do that with. So that is how I make the alcohol ink eggs. And I think for this one I might have put a little bit of the gold in there because I'm getting a little bit of a metallic shine in some of the areas on the background.
Beautiful.
I hope this video has helped you. Please subscribe to my channel to get updates of new videos. Visit my website at lorriepopow.com. Hugs!